Welcome to the Phobos Militia Hobbycast.
So welcome to the Phobos Militia. It's interesting because the Phobos Militia was a spot that, Kyle and I could go to talk about anything and everything that wasn't just specifically retro video games. So we could go there and talk about all the things. And ever since, Kyle had passed, I hadn't found the focus to do Phobos Militia, but I'm thinking more of this like blog style with my thoughts might be the best way to tackle the Phobos Militia going forward. And what I wanted to talk about is something really cool that's come around, and it actually feeds into nostalgia as well as the passion that I shared with Kyle for all things media. And that's why I want to talk about Plex. And the Plex Media Server. And so essentially, if you haven't heard about it before, the Plex Media Server, or just Plex, is essentially your own personal Netflix. So it takes files that you already own, and what it does is it allows you to use it in an app that's also compatible with phones, televisions, PCs, whatever, and you can watch and stream all of your media. And why that is really cool is because like a situation that had happened is when Kyle passed away, he had a huge amount of scary movies. He had a lot of different other types of movies too, but also music. And lots of obscure metal and really, really cool things and documentaries and tons of stuff. And all of that stuff could have possibly went away. However, I fortunately was able to get his hard drive, and he had meticulously ripped all of his movies and taken all of his music and backed it all up. And, fast forward, and our other friend John had passed away, and all of Kyle's vinyl went to John, and all that is now gone. And so the fact that I have all of this digitally backed up means that I have all these memories of good times watching movies and listening to music with Kyle. So it is a really cool way to watch and play your own things. Now, for Plex itself, you can absolutely do this for free for your own personal use. And it's like a little bit limited because up until a couple years ago, I had always done the free version and it was fine for, what I was doing. But when I got all of the different movies and started ripping my own movies and my own music, things got a little crazy. And what it does is it allows you to stream all of your stuff, but with the paid one it allows more features that make it feel more like a complete experience, like a Netflix or something, where your videos will buffer a little bit better. Because I would notice if I'm watching my stuff from my phone on like a cell phone or something like that, that the buffering would be a little slow. So it was pretty cool to see the ways that it would just buffer normally. You can also download it to your own PC, and you can share it with others. So if you have friends, you can share your server with them. Now keep in mind, when they are using your server, it does take up internet bandwidth at your house. So you might notice a little bit of like lag in your internet if your speeds aren't super fast. But it's super cool way to share your media with friends and family too. And friends and family can also share theirs with you, which just multiplies your media center, which is really cool. But I also wanted to talk about like how I personally sort and categorize, and how it's kind of invigorated me because we've done a few episodes on scary movies and metal and things, but also that wrestling one, and it actually created this new nostalgia for the classics. So first and foremost, I have all of my movies in here, and there's so much obscure horror movies that I've added to my Plex, and it's things that you would never have found. And there's also like tons of movies on YouTube, and you can download those with programs, so you can get a lot of obscure movies that are for free on YouTube. And if those end up going away, it's a way that I can preserve it to watch these movies in perpetuity, which is nice. So there's a lot of obscure things that are in my movie category. There's also TV shows, and I put the TV shows as all the live action TV shows. To me, TV now is in like a golden age because it rivals film, especially after the COVID pandemic, when we weren't even going out to theater. Like all the movies essentially just became home watching as it was. So having long form TV content with epic stories, it's been great. And what I like too is that the Plex server keeps track of what you're watching, so it'll recommend what to watch next, which is really neat. You can also do this with other things, such as if you have any favorite YouTube or internet series, you can have those. Like say I have the AVG and Angry Video Game Nerd. I have those DVDs, those Blu-rays. So I have ripped those to my hard drive, and I put them in a YouTube internet series category. And then what I can essentially do is like keep track and watch them. But if there's something like where they have a special that goes in line, so there's like the traditional AVGN episodes, right, that are on the DVD, and then there's like a bonus. That bonus will go into a bonus section, bonus season per se, and it may not flow in order. That does go into though something that's really cool, and that it pulls from repositories to get the information of your movies, of your music, of everything, which is really cool. So essentially it'll pull different posters, it'll pull different boxes, whatever the content is, it'll pull that, as well as information from internet websites like the TV database or the music database. And it'll give you all the information on it, so you can get like a little history lesson and not just consume it. So it's more of an experience, kind of like Netflix, which is really cool. And the other thing that's really cool about it is a lot of movies have options. Like, so if you don't like the traditional Star Wars Episode 4 movie poster, you could change it to the special edition or the very, very classic one, or whatever you want to do, which is really awesome. And then you can add your own images as well. You can add images from online, or you can create your own movie posters. And some of the stuff I have is super obscure, so I really do like being able to go in and create my own posters for things that don't exist, which is really rad. The other thing that's cool is going through and looking at all the different music, because there's a separate app called Plex Amp for music, and it allows you to create different categories based on genre. It shows the newest stuff that you've added. It categorizes like what you've listened to every month, which is really cool. So you can see your top stuff from each month to look back on. And I love lists of stuff and just seen, what I've done in the past. So it's a super fun way to kind of see, oh, I listen to this band a ton. Maybe I should listen to it more. But also I do like, because they do random album and random artist radio. So you can do random albums or artists from your entire library. And because Kyle had thousands upon thousands of albums, there's so much stuff I haven't heard of. I can literally hit random, and then I'll hit like, oh, this is Kraftwerk, which is like, this awesome ambient music that he was getting into, or goes to a black metal band. And it's one of the things that when I'm driving my daughter London to over to night class, because she has class at night a couple days a week, like her and I will listen to a random album, and she's getting really into some of the scary black metal stuff, which is really awesome, because that's something that I shared with Kyle. So she's been getting into some of that stuff. And so we're listening to all the classic nostalgia stuff to keep a connection with people, which is awesome. So the music's great. There's also cool things such as documentaries, and I added like comedy shows, which is fun to see, because I never take the time to like watch comedy shows, but now they're categorized. I also, like I mentioned, TV shows, but also there is I added cartoons and animes, its own thing. So anything that's like a cartoon aspect, whether it's nostalgia cartoons or modern ones. And one of my favorites in there is one called Kaniku Man. That was based off the old actually the figures that I'm talking about were based off of Kaniku Man, this original anime and manga. But the Muscle Men figures, the little pink guys, were based off of this show. And this show is ridiculous, because it starts off as like giant kaiju Godzilla battles, and then it turns into like pro wrestling anime arcs, and it's with a lot of humor, and it's a really fun thing to watch. And that was something that was only available in Japan, and then on the Internet Archive they had like some translated versions, like a very low quality, that were available. So I was able to at least preserve those and watch them. And then you go over to like the game videos and some of those things. And I have quite possibly my favorite, and I think I moved over to TV shows now, but it's called Game Center CX. And I know on Video Game Bullshit, like kind of I did an episode on Game Center CX, and it's about this comedian in Japan, Reno, who plays video games. And initially he was playing video games like terribly, but his thing is that he doesn't give up, and it shows with perseverance that you can sometimes complete games, or he runs out of time because it takes him like days straight playing a game and then he gets too tired. So it's really fun to watch him play, and it's always like retro Famicom or Genesis or Turbo games, and it's such a really, really cool show. It's going on like over 20 seasons now, and there's been a fan sub translation community that's been going on for probably 10 years at this point, honestly. And every once in a while I check to see if there's any new episodes, and I've added them, so I have them all like in order, and I've been watching for years. I'll like watch an episode like once a month or so, but with Plex now I see them there, and I get a reminder, hey, have you watched this episode? For example, I think I'm on the Mr. Gimmick episode. It's really fun watching him play Mr. Gimmick, and you start off, because the controls take some getting used to. You watch him like playing it, and he's dying a lot just like I do, and then eventually you see him and he's like getting through the game and able to write on the stars and do all the cool stuff. And it's fun to see the evolution on every episode. And then he goes around to like game centers and Japanese arcades and stuff, and it shows like a version of the Japanese culture, especially when it started years ago to where it is now, and you get to see how things have evolved in Japan. And so it's a really, really cool show. I love it. It's like one of my favorite shows of all time. Another thing that I have on my server is there's something like you can have different versions of movies. And so there's something out there called the Star Wars TV film cuts. And there are fan groups out there that have taken the Star Wars movie, like TV shows, and cut them into movies. So essentially you have all the classics like Mandalorian, but it's cut into feature-length movies instead of just episodic TV shows. And it keeps like everything in logical order as well. Because if you didn't know, like the Clone Wars show and Rebels, some of those episodes aired out of logical order. And so now there's a way with these film cuts to actually watch every single piece of Star Wars canon in logical order and in a theatrical way. So it's a much more enjoyable way to watch it. Not necessarily how the directors intended, but it's cool to experience stuff in a new way after you've already watched it a bunch of times. And that's what I love about some of these fan projects. And you can throw that stuff on there. I also have a whole thing of riff tracks and cinematic Titanic, which those are the guys from Mystery Science Theater, and they're riffing on movies and doing all that stuff. So those are really fun to watch. But one of the other things I wanted to talk about was, and this goes back to an old Phobos Militia Hobbycast. We were talking about the state of professional wrestling, and that episode was, I think, from 2017. But like, we fast forward and we were making predictions on different aspects, but also we were sharing in our old nostalgia of going to independent wrestling shows in the early aughts. So like in 2002, 2003, 2004, Kyle and I would go to IWA-Mid South Wrestling. And, that's what they call the really, like backyard wrestling. Like there's a lot of guys like Jim Cornette who do not like that type of professional wrestling because there's a lot of crazy, like hardcore stuff that happens there. And there's not they don't pay attention to safety or any of those things. It was ran by Ian Rotten. He's gotten a bad reputation over the years too. But we used to go to these shows. It was awesome because it was a mix of technical wrestling with hardcore wrestling. And then you would see a lot of the legends coming in. I mean, I remember we saw Abdullah the Butcher wrestle. We saw the Road Dogg wrestle. We saw Terry Funk, the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. The champ at the time was CM Punk, and he was like independent at the time, so now he's like legend status. We saw guys like Eddie Guerrero wrestle. Like it was wild, like all the people that we got to see wrestle. AJ Styles wrestled, tons and tons of guys. And then classic death match wrestlers like Madman Pondo, the Necro Butcher, just to say a few, as well as guys that are no longer with us, like JC Bailey, for example. And those are guys like that normal wrestling fans may not know who that is, but he is a legend in the hardcore deathmatch wrestling scene. And so fast forward, many, many years, and that's like 15 years after we saw them, we did our podcast on the state of wrestling. And now we're talking 8 years after that episode. I'm looking back and I have this Plex server where I have my old IWA-Mid South DVDs from Smart Mark Video. And they're like ones where like we were at the show. And then I went and bought a lot of the King of the Death matches. And so I go down a rabbit hole, of course. And I look at all the deathmatch shows from IWA-Mid South from back in the day, as well as CZW, because they did the Tournament of Death. And so now I have a big archive of all these classics from the very first US death matches all the way to present on what was available, what could be purchased, all that stuff. And it's super cool to see like shows that we saw, legend that we saw. But there is a new, not really new, but new to me, pro wrestling, company that I have been getting into recently. And I don't know if anybody's heard of Game Changer Wrestling, GCW. I know there's a couple buddies of mine online that definitely have talked about GCW. There's one that goes to a lot of the shows, but Game Changer Wrestling is out on the East Coast, and they're what I would call the modern evolution of what independent wrestling does right. And I mean, they're on Thriller TV, so they have like a online app deal, which is awesome. Their production value is high quality, and most importantly, like Game Changer Wrestling has like a deathmatch tournament. It's super cool. I watched the deathmatch tournament, and they did like a Deathmatch Hall of Fame. I saw the very first Deathmatch Hall of Fame they did, and there was like classic deathmatch wrestlers on there. Some of them are from back in the day from when I watched, and then there's some newer ones that were from like when I was like deployed in Iraq and I got some of the newer deathmatch tournaments on DVD. I would watch it and I'm like, oh, this guy's starting out. Well, now he's in the Hall of Fame, which is wild. Like Matt Tremont. He was like newer to me at that point back when I deployed. And you know, I deployed in 2007, so it was a long time ago. But I'm old. But now seeing the Deathmatch Hall of Fame, then they had the tournament, and the tournament was cool because you get to see all these newer deathmatch wrestlers, and it's like back in the day, they would attack each other with like barbed wire, and then you'd have a major move with like a barbed wire board, and that's how they would get pinned. And then they would evolve to using light tubes. And they would use the light tubes and a big old explosion, and that would be the pin. Now, these guys are wrestling like legit matches with the hardcore implements. And they're also like doing the cleanup, doing the safety precautions as well as you can with dust going all over the damn place. But like it's a really impressive way to host an independent wrestling promotion. And the other thing is, though, is that Game Changer Wrestling ain't just hardcore, though, because I've been watching other shows outside of the Deathmatch Tournament one, because that was heavily focused on it. But there's tons of technical wrestling and all of the independent technical stuff that I was reminded of when I would watch IWA-Mid South and see the technical experts that put things on. Because back in the day, you had guys like Claudio Castagnoli and Chris Hero and Petey Williams and all these guys, Matt Seidel, which was Evan Bourne in WWE, they would all put on like technical exhibitions in IWA Mid South. And now in Game Changer Wrestling, you have that style too. And they're doing the normal wrestling. And then there's this like blood sport that they put on too, where they take away the ring posts, and it's kind of like a shoot where, in, you know, like real life, quote unquote, I'm using quotation fingers. It's like a shoot where they're actually going after each other. And I'm not sure if it's, you know, how scripted those are, but it definitely seems like it's a little more hardcore than, you know, your traditional wrestling match, because they are getting brutalized pretty bad. So I'm not sure if there's like certain limitations to where they still can protect the wrestlers, but it was pretty awesome. This guy, Josh Barnett from, you know, doing MMA, he's one of the ones that they focused this around, and it's super neat to watch. And so I've been watching GCW. I decided that I'm going to do things like threefold when it comes to the classic wrestling. So I started watching the old school King of the Death matches in the US, the stuff that everybody, like all the commentators, talk crap upon, because it is like, you know, a classic acquired taste to watch that stuff, and it's so cool. I love watching it, and there's been a bunch of tournaments that I was never able to experience, so I'm trying to catch back up. I think I'm in 2001 right now, and in 97 was like the first one, and then in 2000 they like season, that was IWA Mid South in 97, and in 2000 it was like IWA Mid South and Season UW popped in, and then as you move on, you have some other promotions starting to do these different tournaments. And so it starts to explode, and a lot of these guys start to get reputations and build legacies, and it's super cool. So I'm doing that, and then I am jumping in, and I jumped into GCW at that first Deathmatch Hall of Fame. So I probably will continue around that era and watch those deathmatch tournaments. But I'm also watching the modern GCW pay-per-views, the Thriller TV ones, but I started on the New Year's. So it's all leading up to when they go back to the ECW arena, and apparently it was like crazy the year prior. There was some controversy, but I'm trying to avoid spoilers. Fortunately, there's not a whole lot of people in my timelines talking about it, so I don't, you know, I won't see any spoilers to it. But right now, I think I'm on the New Year's version of GCW. I want to get caught up so I can start watching the shows live. They just did like a Jersey with I think it was Jersey Championship Wrestling as well. They're doing a J Cup, and the Super J Cups were like amazing technical tournaments back in the day in Japan. Yeah, guys like Eddie Guerrero, Chris Benoit, Chris Jericho doing these amazing tournaments. And so if it's like that, but Jersey style, US style technical wrestling cup, that would be amazing. It would remind me of the Ted Petty invitationals that IWA-Mid South used to put on. So that would be super dope to watch. That's like the newest thing that came with GCW. But yeah, that is the coolest thing, because like I don't realistically watch anything but highlights of professional wrestling nowadays. Like I'll watch highlights of what happens with WWE on like YouTube or something. I'll see like a highlight. I love watching the Royal Rumble and WrestleMania, so that'll be my classics that I watch every single month or every single year. But I don't watch technically I don't watch the monthly pay-per-views with all that stuff, even though I have a classic nostalgia for wrestling. And so it's cool though with this Plex server, I'm able to experience a lot of these classic ones and watch them. So like, while I'm, at home, I can just toss one of those on. I do tend to find myself though, which is hilarious, watching this on my phone versus going onto my TV, which any smart TV has a Plex app that you can watch. But I'll typically just watch it on my phone. It's like, it's just like an acquired taste to just have a little personal enjoyment watching old school wrestling or watching a Game Center CX episode or a TV show I want to catch up on. So it's pretty cool. The other thing is it allows you to keep shows that are gone. So for example, the Disney Willow show's gone. Well, if you have a copy of it digitally, you can watch it on your Plex. And I was literally watching it on my buddy's Plex server yesterday, which was really cool. The other thing is that I've been on a few TV shows. And so our episode of House in a Hurry, which was on HGTV, like that show doesn't even exist on their website. There's no episodes of it. You can't find the episodes anywhere. And fortunately, we have a digital copy that we were sent of our episode. So I have that, and now I can watch it and share it with friends and family who want to see us on national television, which was cool. And then recently, I was just on Rescue High Surf, HI like Hawaii, and I did 21 gun salute wearing a Navy uniform, which was hilarious because, I'm 20 years active duty Army, and they put me as like a Navy E2 doing a 21 gun salute. But I have that episode and it's on my Plex server, so that way I'll always have it in case if that show isn't maintained, if it goes away or something, like I'll have it forever, which is cool. Even though I'm pretty sure Rescue Ice Surf's one of the highest rating shows on Fox, and so I was on Fox, which is crazy to me. I think initially they told us that episode was going to be on after the Super Bowl, and then they ended up changing it to the day after the Super Bowl, which probably got more views because Super Bowl is very divisive this year. So I don't know how many people would have stayed and tuned in to Rescue High Surf afterward. But it was very cool to do that. I recorded that in Hawaii before I left. So, but like with that, like those videos are on my Plex server. It's the same thing with some of these video game documentaries that I've been on. I was on the Bits of Yesterday, and I have that DVD, so that's on my Plex server. I ripped that. And then there's other shows like N64 Quest by Rob McCallum. I was interviewed for that when I was at, I think it was Game On Expo in Phoenix, Arizona, which is run by John Lester. I was interviewed there, and I'm on a few of those episodes that they do. So what they do is like the main guy on the show, Jay, is going to collect the entire Nintendo 64 library. And then in between, they'll cut to different people in the community or experts to talk about their memories of the Nintendo 64, why it's important. And so they cut to me a few times. And fortunately, because I backed it on Kickstarter, ironically, I backed it before I was interviewed, which is pretty funny. But I backed it, so I got downloadable links. So those video files, I put it on my Plex server, and now I can watch it, and I have it saved in perpetuity. And so it's really cool to be able to have those type of memories. The same with music. Like I recorded in music in a metal band for years, and now it's all saved on the Plex server, and I can share it with people and go, hey, here's some crazy guitar stuff that I did back in the day. It's really fun. And there's stuff I forgot I did, which is really cool. So, Plex ultimately is a awesome little device, awesome little tool, awesome little system, program, whatever you call it. I do love it. The one thing that I've been recommended that I haven't done yet, but I need to, is obviously because this is running off of a computer, off of a hard drive, you do need to make sure you make backups, which I do have backups of my media, but you're gonna want to run it off of like a decent server, like not necessarily just a portable hard drive, because currently I'm just running off a portable hard drive, like it's fine. But those hard drives, if they're running all the time, they're going to become less reliable, or they're going to wear out faster than if you just were using it for normal use as a storage device. So the thing with that is that you just got to make sure that you have a nice server for it if you're taking it super serious. And I figure, once I stop moving in the army, maybe I'll take it a little more serious. I'll get like a little server thing or something, because they're not super expensive if you get the last generation. You get the newest thing, it's crazy. But if you want to do it right, it's, you can always upgrade. You can always do more. So I just figured, I would use this opportunity for, the Phobos Militia to talk about something really neat out there, something really cool that not a whole lot of people like generally know about, because these Plex servers are really awesome. And I mean, it's literally part of my daily watch now. So it is something that's super ingrained now in my lifestyle, because like I'll listen to music in my truck as I'm driving, and it's connected to my Plex server, and I'm listening to music. I'll be at home watching a television show, and instead of subscribing to 27 different streaming services, I will watch whatever I want to on my Plex server. And because I have every movie that I could ever want, I have so much stuff. Like technically, I have everything that I want to watch. So it's, I don't need to be subscribed to all of these different apps, just the certain ones that my wife enjoys, like Disney or Amazon to get the Amazon Prime or whatever. But I don't have to have a million different apps because I can just watch it on Plex. So yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts about it, those that are still listening to the Phobos, even though we never record? So I assume that like, unless I'm sharing this, like people aren't gonna actually see it, because this type of pirate radio, I call it pirate radio because we were like back in the Wild West of podcasting. This wasn't necessarily conducive to the algorithms. It's kind of Wild West times. But like, what are your thoughts with Plex? Have you heard of it? Are you interested in hearing more about it? Let me know. Like, hit me up. Like, either send a message here on the little Spotify or Apple Podcasts, or shoot a message somewhere on social media and let me know. Because like, is there anything that you've done with a Plex server? Do you have any ideas with the Plex server to like have fun with it and further enrich the expectations, or the experience? My only thing that I really wish that it had was a random button, like, because I think Netflix has that, but like, because this is curated, like I have stuff on here that I like, so I would like to be able to go into like the movies and hit random and be like, all right, what does the randomness have for me today? And that'd be cool. Be like, boom. Or I could go into a specific genre and do it. But it would be really cool to see like the random aspects, because the Plex amp has random on the music. I want random on the movies. I think that would be dope. But also, have you seen or heard of Game Changer Wrestling? Because like obviously AEW's came around recently, and AEW is like hit or miss depending on if you fall into the naysayers or not, and it's an exciting and different experience. Well, GCW to me is that perfect mix of indie, classics, and hardcore wrestling that I really used to enjoy. So I'm finding myself gravitating towards GCW. But have you heard of it even? That's the thing. Like most normal wrestling fans probably haven't even heard of it, because it's an acquired taste. But these guys are awesome, and they're putting forth their blood, sweat, and tears. So I think, combination of, having your personally curated libraries has been allowing me to get into like things that I really used to enjoy, and now I can enjoy them again and get a deeper appreciation for them. But anyways, guys, make sure you share the podcast. I will do more of these if y'all want. Just hit me up, like leave comments. You get me excited, I'll do more of these. It's cool though. And anyways, everybody, thank you for listening, and let's see what else we could talk about.